It's 3:05 p.m., so we're starting a little late. I apologize for that. We do have a quorum of 5 of the 9, so we do have a quorum. At this point, I'd like to make a couple announcements. One, to my fellow board members to either silence or turn off their cell phones at this point. And secondarily, to welcome the viewers of Channel 17. This meeting will be rebroadcast on the city's public channel here in at future time slots. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I'm going to say for items not on the agenda at this point. I see no one coming forward, so we'll proceed to item 3, which is consideration of approving the minutes from the April 25th, 2017 TIRZ Board meeting.
Move approval.
Move for approval by Mr. Pfluger. Is there a second? Second by Mike. Is there any board discussion? Any public discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Our motion carries. Next on the agenda is item 4, our financial report. And Mr. James has that.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This will be a little bit more brief this month. Before I go into this, last month you noticed that I showed you the expenditures over that past month. I did not include those this time. We did not have any expenditures out to incentive applicants. We did have a couple of minor things for, as we talked about last time, water, sewer bills. I didn't include those on a slide since they were just those minor items, but again, no incentive requests were paid out over the past month. This is the summary of what you have at your seat is a more detailed report, but this is a summary of that. Basically, we started the year with about $900,000 in the north, the year-to-date expenditures of about $43,000. Our anticipated revenue for the year, again, which we have available immediately, regardless of when it actually comes in, is about $430,000. And then committed, those are the committed funds that you all have already authorized for future expenditure. I will note that I had emailed out a different version from what you see at your seat. The difference is really in that number, and what I had failed to include on the one I emailed you was your recommendation from last time that the City Council did approve the $100,000+ in the north. So that is now reflected on this. And I think I think that bottom number on the north, yeah, that's correct. So this is our total available funds, basically as of today, what we have available to spend in the north. But as we discussed last time, you did authorize setting aside 25% of that for public projects. So when we subtract that out, the amount available for incentive grants or saving for other purposes is the $977,000 in the north. Similarly, in the south, we started the year with $600,000, have spent about $188,000 this year, anticipated revenue of $279,000, and then committed outstanding is $458,000 roughly. I'll remind you again that $458,000 is a number for future commitments, some of which can be up to 10 years out. And so as I remind you, we budget conservatively. Once you authorize money to be spent for something, we set it aside and assume it's spent and is not available, even though technically if we wanted to play more of a cash flow game, we could have more available, but at this point we've always been conservative in how we estimate those. That leaves a total estimated of $239,000. You take that minus the 25% set aside for public projects, leaving about $169,000, a little more for incentives. That number is important, as you know, because today one of your items is the grant requests for the South. I think those grant requests totaled, I want to say $380,000, maybe $400,000.
$425,000.
$425,000. So you've got $425,000 of requests, but only about $169,000 available to apportion out, and that's if you spent all that's available. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
John, one question on the side report there. You had a committed of 52,800, and those two projects that are committed are basically the bulk of the Concho Street project, the widening of Concho, and
Yeah, the Concho Street widening project is the bulk of that. The other piece is the south share of the 10,000 you authorized for upgrading or maintaining the landscaping on the Chadburn Street project, both north and south.
those are above and beyond the 25% set aside for.
At this point, yes, since those decisions were made prior to your set-aside goal of 25%, we've assumed that those are expenditures outside of the 25% set-aside. That's always up to you if you want to shift that around and say it's from the 25% set-aside.
That might be something for consideration,
And
because those commitments were made this year,
that's correct.
and while we were in this discussion.
That's right. One other note, just an update for you at the city council meeting. They took up the issue of the Chadburn Street streetscape project. They did make a recommendation similar to yours, although it was changed somewhat. They did agree with your assessment of taking 25%, this 25% set-aside funds from the north to go towards that project. Their recommendation was actually to take 50% of the TIRZ revenue in the south to be the set-aside for the Chadburn project moving forward. So that they made the conscious decision for that not to apply to this year's funds. So this year we are only setting aside the 25%, but assuming, number one, assuming we get the grant for the Chadburn Street project and assuming council ultimately does authorize that 50%, then in the future years, for the coming 8 years, that number would go to 50% in the south. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
I've got one real quick. You just made a comment about some project being 10 years out. That doesn't mean there's projects 10 years out. Is that, or?
Well, most of them no, but number one, some of the previous projects, the timelines on which they work could mean the project doesn't actually get completed for 3 or 4 years. But a few of the projects had a 10-year tax abatement that could stretch over the full 10 years. Now, most of those, again, some of them have already been into it 2 or 3 years. So the number of projects that actually extend out the full 10 years are very few. But there are some that stretch out 6, 7, 8 years.
Okay.
Most of the funding you've committed, though, will be spent or expected to be within the next 2 to 3 years.
When will the decision about taking 50% of the South Zone funds was not in the paper? So I wasn't aware of that until you just said it.
I wasn't either.
When is that decision going to be made?
Well, honestly, we're still looking into what exactly was the action that council took at their previous meeting. Was it actually authorization of funds, or was it authorization of the concept, in which case an actual authorization would have to come back to them in the future? And today, I just don't know the answer to that question. Depending on the answer to that, it may be that they already approved that. It may be that it has to come back to them for one more vote to make that happen. But they did approve it in concept and submitting that as part of the grant request to the state for that state project. So I would say if it's really a matter of dotting I's and crossing T's, if it does have to go back to them for formal authorization, they've basically committed that for the Chadburn Street project if we get the grant, because they're submitting that as part of the grant request and part of the city's match for that grant.
Wow.
But they had their last meeting, what, last Tuesday? Is that when they talked about it, or when?
Was it, yeah, the 16th.
Tuesday.
And we don't know for sure how it went? I mean,
Again, they authorized the concept and submitting a grant application with those amounts of money as the city's proposed match. I'm not clear if that was technically authorization to spend TIRZ money or if that takes a separate resolution. I know I'm springing this on Dan. I don't know if we have an answer to that at this point.
They're telling you the mic, come to the mic.
I was not present at that meeting, but as I understand it, they approved certain allocations so that the application could go forward for the grant money. Whether that will go back to city council, I can't say for sure, but I would expect that it would go back to city council and back to the other sources for funding for the actual commitments. So if that moves forward based on what they approved, then I would expect that they're pretty much committed to approve that in order to secure the grant. So they authorized the city manager to move forward for the application for this state grant to be made based on the fact that there are commitments for this additional funding. And so if that does get approved, then the commitment is there, but it'll still go back to council, I would assume.
And is that commitment in dollars or in percentages of our set aside?
I think it was estimated based on the percentage and the anticipated revenues.
So the vote was for 50%
Right.
for 8 years, not for a $900,000 bound of money.
Well, they came up with a calculation so that they could show the state that the capacity was there. And it was clear that that's an estimate, and it's on the basis that this supports the application. So the actual would have to go back to council.
Obviously, we'd be a lot better off in terms of downtown revitalization if that was spread over 16 years as opposed to 8 years. I mean, I do believe that that'd be more in tune with what our board has decided to spend on public projects.
Right, there was an application process, and it's competitive, and this is what they came up with. So what they're on May 22nd was the deadline, or is the deadline for the application.
When do we know when that's awarded?
I don't know that we are going to know. There's a very actually, for the number of applicants, there's a very limited amount of money. So there'll only be a few of the applications that are approved. They might be partially approved, they might be fully approved. So it's the stage that it's at right now is a proposal stage with estimates, and that's all that we have to move forward on.
I would imagine we'd know by July, August, don't you think, John? And when we were discussing this at the last meeting, nobody really wanted to think about long-term financing using TIRZ. But if the council's going to go ahead and commit those funds, maybe that's something that we could talk to them again about on how that, whether that's an 8-year commitment or a longer-term commitment. I don't think that's set in stone. It's like he said, it was just making sure that we had the funds necessary to submit the application by deadline.
Right, they wanted to know the community commitment, and that there was a way that if the state money went in, that the additional financing somehow or other would be there to complete the project. But the scope of the project isn't even for sure. They could approve part of it only.
So we had better make our plans on that commitment at this point. The city's pretty much committed us to that at this point, and we may have to go back to negotiation with them about how we pay it back.
In order to not affect your cycle like what we're talking about today, they did make it clear that none of that would come out of this current year's funds. If anything, it would start, that 25% or 50% would start with the next budget year.
I'm happy with their 50% match. That's a good thing. The matching, the 50% that they want to pull out, I'm happy with that.
Since this is just a report, is there any more board discussion? Something to chew on for the next few days?
Thank you.
Move to item 5, consideration of approving updates to the TIRZ incentive policy. As you prepare, they look great. I just have a couple of maybe semantic changes on the reports as they line out. All the page numbers don't appear on the bottom of the page. I know that's semantics, but small. This shouldn't hold the plan back. On the south incentives policy on the background, the extension for the phone number extends down on 2 lines after the phone number, so it's a little quirky there, just the way it reads. On the north policy, again, small details, but if we want to get it right, we want to get it right. The eligibility requiring the eligibility incentive types are on page 1 and 2, not on just page 2. There's one on the bottom of page 1. That's on the north policy. A couple of other things on the north and the south policy both. It asks about, let me look here, sprinkler and monitored smoke alarm systems. I know we mean fire sprinkler, but there is another type of sprinkler system controls that are out there, especially lawn sprinkler, so we may want to label that fire sprinkler, and there's 2 places where it's listed as sprinkler only on the incentive types, and that's north and south both. Again, basically semantics. And then the only thing critical is the required application documents. I know that it came up last time, but we may want to put the last requirement in there that the owner list prior TIRZ funding that has been awarded at that property. So we know if we've funded projects there before, and it's on the required application documents, and it's both north and south. Again, basic semantic changes with the exception of that last line about previous TIRZ funding, and if that would be at the board's discretion too, if they'd be happy with that.
Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Shannon Scott, Economic Development Specialist for the City of San Angelo. Thank you for those comments, Mr. Dindal. We had a few that we wanted to bring to your attention as well. Again, besides semantics, we felt that these were pretty significant changes to bring to y'all's attention. So the first item we had discussed last time about the property tax incentive. We were deciding on a date for when the payments were actually going to be remitted, and in checking with the county, that is by February 1st. So we did update that for the property tax incentive, as well as updating the percentage amounts for that incentive. Any specific questions so far on the property tax? Okay. Then there was some further discussion regarding the required application documents. We sent out the original policy with our updates, and we had some discussion and some suggestions that we wanted to bring back to y'all to get y'all's ideas. We decided to add a zone impact statement simply because we do have some projects that may not specifically meet all the criteria, but they do have some sort of impact on the property itself or surrounding properties. So we felt that that might be a good item to include within the required application documents. Of course, renderings, which would include photos and things like that. And then for the south, we added an approval letter from the DHRC if it was applicable, if it happened to be in the downtown river corridor. So those were items that we wanted, again, to bring to your attention that we felt were pretty significant changes to the policy.
I'm not sure that I see one specifically that addresses how a project might further stimulate tax base. Since these funds are from ad valorem tax increases, I think that I would think some hope that they would give back beyond what is taken, you know, and stimulate further. So the zone impact statement may be that. I don't know, but I would like for you to maybe think about that one.
Okay.
I think that's really how we justify this kind of project.
Sure.
I would move approval of the two incentive policies, north and south, with these modifications.
I'll second his motion.
This time, is there any public comment? Any additional board comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Our motion carries. Let's move to item 6, which is the update and discussion of current projects in progress.
Okay, since the last meeting, there hasn't been a whole lot of change on the projects that were reported on. However, we did have a comment, I believe it was from Ms. Gunter, regarding one of the properties that was set for demolition. So I wanted to give an update on that specific project, and that's the one that's located at 236 West Beauregard, the Butterfield parking lot. He was approved for asbestos abatement as well as paving. I had spoken with him, and the status is right now, I believe her question was, when was the date for demolition? So apparently he had a surveyor come in, and he has deemed the property 2 separate properties. And from my understanding, half of the property has already been abated for asbestos, but he's still waiting to get a survey for the other portion of the property. And he's thinking that that's going to take, you know, a few months. So at the earliest, maybe anywhere from 3 to 4 months for demolition of that property.
Is that address both buildings, or is it one building, or which one is it?
John, do you know specifically if that
Butterfield buildings?
includes both?
I think it's just the one, but I'm not 100% sure.
Gotcha, never mind. Corner building.
That's all I had for the current project updates.
Scott, we'll move to item 7, which is,
Could I ask one other
Certainly.
question? Just, and I know we discussed a little bit about the Chadburn project, but in the newspaper, it said it's an 80-20 split. And when I talked to somebody afterwards, they said, oh, it's going to be a great deal. It's an 80-20 split. Can you tell me what the 80 is and what the 20 is?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that.
Just what the paper said.
The grant requirement is that it be an 80-20 split, that 80% can be from the grant, 20% has to be a match from the city. Having said that, the city's proposal is to actually match 30%, with 70% from the state, 30% from the city. The belief is that successful projects often commit more of a match than the minimum required 20%. Having said all that, the grant itself is for the streetscape and, you know, streetscaping and sidewalks portion only. And so of the total project, which includes the street reconstruction, only the streetscaping and sidewalk portion is eligible for the grant. So of the total something like $18 million project, the whole $18 million isn't eligible for the grant. So there's the overall Chadburn project, and there's the subset of the project that is grant eligible. Of the grant eligible piece, we're matching 30%. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think the description in the paper really confused, because it's about a 90-10 split if you compare the grant to how much the city's paying. City's paying 90%, and the grant pays 10%. So
But if it's
somewhere that ought to
ineligible-
be, what?
Yeah, those are ineligible, that.
I realize that,
Yeah.
but I mean,
It's
city told-
misleading.
Somebody said, well, boy, that's a great deal. 80%'s coming from the state.
And-
And I don't think the public should be misinformed about the project and thinking 80% is going to come from the state when only 10%
I
comes from the
can't
state.
speak for the newspaper, but if, my understanding from having been at the council meeting, I don't think,
That was
hopefully
clear?
no one at the council meeting was under that
There's no one
misimpression.
there.
Okay.
But I should add that a big chunk of that street reconstruction was already planned. One of the reasons the Chadburn Street project was chosen to begin with was because the city had already set aside a big chunk of the street improvement funds to do the reconstruction of Chadburn.
Okay, that's clear.
Okay, let's move to item 7, which is discussion and possible action regarding the TIRZ Board's recommendation for incentive awards for year 2018. I want to remind the board that there are several projects, especially in the south, with significant amount of money that they are seeking, to be exact, somewhere around $425,000. And at this point, we have $169,698 that we could potentially award. So in the review, we need to be careful of what we look at and how we spend, and make sure that we're sure of what we're doing is correct.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start with an overview of the north projects that were discussed, approved, and denied during the last meeting. These were the projects in the north that were approved and the total funding amount that was approved. Here are the projects that were denied in the north, as well as the total funding amount for those. So that leaves us with 3 additional projects in the north that are requiring future action. And I believe at the board's request, we were asked to come back and bring additional information in the form of potentially pictures, items, things of that nature. So here are the overview of those 3 projects. So basically, I'll start with the project. We'll go over kind of the details. I'll show you the pictures. I will tell you for the 2 projects for Harvey Andrews, he was able to submit additional pictures today. I have them on hand. I was not able to get them in the presentation. And he is here as well if he needs to help answer additional questions. But I do have pictures if we need to hand those out to you guys to take a look at. So his first property is at 2829 North Chadburn. He is requesting $58,400, matching $42,000 for a total cost of $100,400. The summary of work on this is he's going to be installing new metal trim, 2 new garage doors, brick and brick columns, painting of the entire exterior, paving over existing pavement stripes and landscaping. And I will mention there's one other item that I did add to the slideshow that was not on the last presentation, which is the project criteria, which is part of the application process. So those are the little, I think there's maybe 15 or 16 criteria listed, which each applicant has to go through and check off that they believe that they meet through their project. So that's a new item that we've put on there. This is the original drawing that we had from Harvey, and again, he has submitted additional pictures that I'd be happy to hand out for y'all to take a look at if that would help in the decision-making process. And while Sarah's hitting those out, I'll go over and go ahead and move on to his next project, which is located at 2821 North Chadburn. He's requesting $65,750 with a match of $40,000 and a total cost of $105,750. Again, the summary of work includes installation of new windows, front entry doors, new columns and rock, new trim, new paint, new stucco paving and striping. And that's going to be done with asphalt, and he's going to include landscaping as well in that. And the project criteria is 10 of the 14 that he he meets for that. And I have pictures as well on this project, in addition to this one.
I'd like to see the pictures.
Do we know what's involved with the planting of shrubs, the landscaping portion?
Yes, we did, and Harvey, you want to add to this? We did have a discussion regarding the pecan trees. I know that there was some concern with those, and I do believe he has agreed to replace those with more drought-resistant plants, the xeriscaping. So yes, that discussion was had.
I didn't see it, but is there any sort of watering or irrigation system that's going to be able to maintain these? I don't know if it's listed in the additional summary or not, but
Yes, he's
it's
saying
not
yes.
listed in the prospectus here.
Okay.
Just an amount. Welcome.
Harvey Andrews. Yeah, we're going to have a sprinkler system put in.
To maintain the landscape. To
Yes, sir.
maintain the landscape.
Yes, sir.
Did you draw these? Is that your drawing?
It does look like my drawing, doesn't it?
It
Yes,
is?
sir. Yes, sir. After seeing other people's drawings, we'll do it different next time.
One of your proposals has about twice as many shrubs as the other proposal, and each one of them are valued at $5,000.
Yes, sir. We have. We were going to do the pecan trees, and different areas would have allowed us to have bigger pecan trees. So we'll adjust it accordingly. We'll have, bigger shrubs in the back and over on the side. And we did try to get Olive's nursery to come out, but they were too busy.
Also, Harvey, on a couple of them, you've got like a paving estimate. Is that just is that a random estimate of what you think it's going to take to resurface? And I know that we've kind of gotten away from paving, so I don't know if that really matters for sure. But there's a couple of paving estimates that are pretty significant in there. So.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to approve them or not approve them one at a time, or are you going to present all of them? What do you plan on doing?
So the way that we've got it set up is to go ahead and do the presentation of each application, each project, and at the end, we'll present our staff recommendations.
This has plantings in front and in back of your building?
Yes, sir.
Are you occupying this building right now?
Yes, sir. We
Both
have
of 'em?
No, sir, one of them. The one on the corner, it's a window tint place and window repair place. And the other one, we have a tenant that's wanting to put in a restaurant.
And that's probably the old Joe's Park.
Yes, sir.
restaurant.
Mr. Andrews, I feel very strongly that if we're taking funds away from the general fund that benefit all citizens and giving them to a private property owner for their use and the enhancement of their personal property, that they should have a real high impact in the community. Can you tell me how you think this will help your neighborhood?
Yeah, surely y'all have been down there, and I really think that it's going to improve the whole site, the whole area. I'm sorry, is that me?
Who knows, yeah.
I really think that we'll be able to generate a lot of sales in that area, a lot of traffic, and improve the looks of the area.
How many employees do you have now?
They have 6 at the window tent, and they're planning on about 10 at the restaurant.
Some board comment? Scott, your recommendations? Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
If you'd like, we just have one more project in the north to review, and then we can go ahead and present our staff recommendations. The third project that is up for discussion today is at Waltz Auto Sales on 1718 North Bryant. They're requesting the full $75,000 with a match of a little over $84,000, and a total project cost just below $160,000. And the details of their summary of work would be grading and paving their dirt lot with asphalt. When they had originally submitted their application, it was just for the paving portion. And then going back with discussion from the board and asking to do landscaping as well, they did agree to that. So that will include landscaping as well along with the paving. And again, this meets 4 of the 14 of the project criteria. I did speak with them and asked for them to provide some additional pictures and things, and I was hoping that they would, but unfortunately we didn't get those in time. But the intent was there to provide additional photos. So. With that said, moving along for our recommendations as far as staff, we have recommended to approve all 3 of the north projects that were presented today, as they are presented, for a total of $199,150.
I discussed a little more about fixing a parking lot based on what Elizabeth's focus was before. That's a lot of money to put in it for these public funds to go into a parking lot, I think.
Of that 149,000, excuse me, of that 160,000 total for Waltz, 150 is paving only. Aesthetics is probably 10. The landscape part of it is only $10,000. So
Probably, and I've got their landscaping estimate. I can double
Yeah,
check if
yeah.
I need to.
it's 10,013 and some change.
Okay.
So on that one, I would really be remiss to pay for paving anymore. So I'd really recommend on 1718 that we just pay for the landscape, which is 10,000.
Yeah.
Any additional input on that?
I'm going to go on record and say I find it hard to swallow any of these projects, especially when it involves paving, especially when it involves some public funds and going into a private organ. I mean, with all due respect to the business owners, but it's hard for me to sit here and even fathom putting that much money into projects like that, into private businesses like that. if it was a big economic type of impact to any of these projects, I'd feel more comfortable. But I mean, that's just me. But I just don't. I can't fathom doing it.
In the Harvey projects, there is some facade improvements in there, which is what we really targeted on, is facade improvements. But the rest of it's a little questionable. You're absolutely correct.
Really, Harvey's is really one project. They've broken it apart, and our max is 75,000, and that might be something to consider there.
On both projects.
Together it's one project. Fund 75,000 on both of them.
Shannon, how did you base you all's recommendation?
Again, and John, you may chime in if you've got additional comment. Just the overall aesthetics of the project, what again we thought the value that it would bring to the area. We know that the North in the past has not garnered a lot of attention as far as TIRZ projects are concerned, and now that we're finally getting the word out there, the attention out there, people are excited. You know, they do want to improve their buildings and their facade. We thought that these were, while it's obviously is a paving and a landscaping project, but overall, we thought that these were good projects that would improve the overall visibility of the North Zone as well as the properties themselves.
And as you know, we were very hesitant about paving projects. In fact, our staff recommendation was not to fund projects that were solely paving projects. But you may recall, we actually originally suggested taking paving out of the incentive policy altogether. Your all's recommendation was that you might be interested in funding paving if it was part of a larger project. And so I think that played a factor. Again, we go into this very hesitant about any funding for paving, but if it includes facade improvements, it includes landscaping, and those other things, then we're a little more likely to, let me say it the other way, that's the only case we would consider recommending approval of a paving project if it was part of an overall improvement to the whole property.
And to opine, this is on the Waltz, is 90% of the project is paving. So I think that's why the chairman probably was talking about 10,000.
Do we have a facade drawing for either of the Chadburn projects and after? I mean, what the desire is? I have no understanding what that involves, other than the items that are, I guess, that were mentioned. I don't understand what we're trying to accomplish with that.
I don't believe there were after photos for either of those projects.
I mean, not after, but design.
Okay.
Yeah, just some sort of design concept. I would need that before I could even consider, because I think that a lot of different kinds of projects have the ability to be stimulus projects, but I can't. I have no idea how we're headed on that one. So personally, you know how I feel about these funds, so I would be hesitant to vote for approval on that without having some idea of where we're headed.
And I would, Bill, and I would backtrack myself. I totally believe in the facade making the area look nicer. So if we could, and I wish he had something today. Then the visual, a picture's worth 1,000 words. But if there's nothing there, I'm totally against paving projects, with these type of funds. But facade, yeah, I can live with that. If you're going to make the area, the neighborhood look nicer, then I feel a little bit better about it. But
I'll speak up on Harvey's. I was probably more confused after I saw the pictures than I was before I saw the pictures. So I think we need some type of rendering of what it's going to look like afterwards. For Waltz Auto Sales, I feel the same way. I mean, if we can't get pictures, I mean, that's a large request for us to spend money when we don't even see a picture of what it's going to look like, a rendering of what it's going to do. So I'm probably have to agree with you guys that it's going to be hard to fund something without being able to conceptually see how it's going to improve the area.
And often aside from just the concept of it being paving, when you looked at the criteria being met, the criteria for the Waltz Auto Sales is only 4 out of the 14. So, you know, if I'm scoring something, that's not a score that is acceptable. It's not even 50% of the scores.
So then how, and good point, and I saw it too, but how, if he only met 414, how do you recommend us, how do you bring this recommendation to us if they didn't even meet half of the pieces of the whole thing?
Again, I think it's a combination of several different factors. I mean, the project criteria is just one of the things that we take into consideration as staff. John, do you want to comment
Yeah, I
more on?
think one of the factors clearly here is north versus south. North has more funds. We've had a harder time finding properties to request these funds. So honestly, we've been a little more lax in terms of how harshly we judge these projects in the north. In other words, we've been a little more free with a recommendation for approval of a project that, given the competition in the south, these projects would probably never be considered with the limited information. But on the north, we've been more free in terms of our recommendations.
Or even have the criteria.
These are the only 3 projects that came to you?
Oh, sir,
They're
we approved
remaining.
ones last
These are the
time.
ones that,
Remaining.
okay.
Remaining.
And just as a reminder, these are the projects that we had recommended, I believe, not funding.
Not.
At least because of the lack of information, we suggested that perhaps if they came back with a more comprehensive, including some landscaping and some other things, that
Right.
we might be willing to consider them. So just remember that we didn't go in with a full-hearted recommendation of these. We were pushed in the direction of recommending once they provided a little more of the aesthetic treatments with the project.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think that's a very fair answer, and thank y'all, because you don't have as much historic fabric the further north you get, and we know that, but there's still ways, that's what I mean, to kind of further other development. But on the item project criteria, for instance, of reduce the visual impact of parking areas, usually that's like some sort of shrub wall where we're not looking at vehicles rather than paving under a sales lot. So, anyway, I would like to see more, as I said, and I'm not going to say that I'm completely anti. I think I just need to understand what the design concept is and to see what we think it can do for the area.
Speaking directly to Mr. Andrews, would you be opposed to bringing us a little more information on what your final project's going to look like? Okay. And in Waltz, the same thing. We can push that till we get some more information on that, a final drawing of the irrigation or the landscape project on that. Okay?
And I can get in touch with them again
And if they
remind
don't,
them.
we deny them.
Correct. Okay.
I think that's fair.
Good deal. Okay.
Well, we really, from what I hear on Waltz, you wouldn't want to say bring us more stuff on a 90-10 and then kill it. I mean, if the way I look at that one right now, it's dead on arrival. And if somebody thinks, well, are we being nice to him by telling him bring us some more stuff and we'll decide later, I'd prefer just to say we decline 17-18.
Is that a motion, Mr. Pfluger?
That's my motion, please.
Is there a second? Any public comment? Any additional board comment? Okay, then our motion passes to decline the application for 1718 North Bryant and table 2829 and 2821 North Chadron for additional information.
Good. All in favor?
Call for the vote.
Excuse me, yes. Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
So that, I'm sorry, just to be clear, that was one motion to deny the Waltz Auto Sales and table the other two, all as one motion?
Correct.
Okay.
Please.
Apologize for not calling for the vote, yeah.
You are human.
Let's move to TIRZ South.
Okay, at the last board meeting, we were asked to bring back all 12 of the south projects, and again, ask for additional information. in regards to the projects that may have not submitted photos and things like that initially. And I can tell you that the format's a little different. I had to do 4 per page, so we'll have 3 pages of each of the applicants. We'll just run over those really quick to give you an overview of what they are, and again, go through each one in detail with pictures and those items. So here are the first 4, and they are in numerical order with the amount that they requested. Here are the next 4 projects. And then the final 4 projects. And again, you'll notice the total of funding requested is $425,093 and 61 cents. And again, keep in mind we have a fund balance of $169,698 to allocate to these projects. So again, we'll go over the overview, and at the end, we'll present the staff recommendations. Okay, first project, 59 North Chadbourn. Funding requested is $3350 with a match of $4,400 and a total project cost of $7750. This is more so for facade improvements, as you'll see, with new exterior doors, new signage, landscaping, interior doors, as well as secondary egress. And they're meeting 7 of the 14 criteria. This project, I did not receive additional photos or information as far as before and after pictures, renderings, and things of that nature.
Shannon, before you move on to the next one, I'll just, as a note, that noise, that sound is usually when somebody's cell phone is too close to the microphone. So if you could just make sure, if you've got your cell phone on the table, maybe move it away from the mic a little bit.
Do we talk about these now, or we talk about them later?
It's up to you guys, however you want to do it.
I would only mention the word new sign in there. And part of this request was for potted plants.
Permanent landscape.
And just so everybody's aware of that, to put potted plants on the street. And I know the museum had that idea to put potted plants out until they stole them all. So I think the potted plant part would probably be somewhat seasonal. When they were there, they weren't there. And the other question I have on several of these were secondary egress were doors inside the building. How is a secondary egress relate to doors inside the building?
You want to comment on that? Or?
Well, we have some criteria. Most of the funding is for exterior, particularly facade, things that are visible from the street, although the policy does allow for expenditure of TIRZ funds for internal work for some specific things like a fire sprinkler system and also secondary egress. That would typically be for fire marshal required exit doors in a building, and those sometimes can be at the rear of the building. And so that is an eligible expense.
You're saying the interior doors are fire doors?
That's correct.
Now, I don't believe they're actually interior doors like from one interior space to another. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's only the only things we can spend for are exterior doors that allow an additional access, basically as a fire exit. Is that?
And maybe that's worded incorrectly, but the doors that they're installing are what they're going to use for their secondary egress.
Just wonder where those doors are going to be. How big a place is this? 59 is huge, but there's 2 indoors, 2 interior doors, and 2 exterior doors. I just wondered how many doors do you go through to get to a
This is another one of those
secondary deal.
As we discussed, pending the new policy you just approved, we don't currently require that level of detail, but clearly that's a reason you could use to to either not consider this project or not fund those particular elements if you're not comfortable that you don't have enough detail.
Oh, I'd fund it if it's part of the fire marshal's plan. I just wondered how you had 2 interior doors and 2 exterior doors on fire marshal. Yeah, maybe David can tell us the answer on that one. It's probably gonna come up on his projects too.
David Reserve,
A picture of the building, I just pulled.
yeah, actually, there's 2 exits on that building. That's why there's 2 egress doors for Panic Hardware. They just got it worded wrong. Well, they're saying they're interior, but they're not. It's a Panic Hardware door that goes out to the building, so that means there's 2 egress doors going out. That's why they requested 2.
I figured there was a reason, I just didn't know where they were.
Wording is not correct.
So for this project, if we took out the new sign and landscaping, would we be looking at approving this one?
I would.
I
I
would
would
too.
too.
You might not say approve just yet, but put on the favorable list, because there's a
Yes,
lot of requests and very little money here.
I agree.
Are you doing the math?
I was, but I was writing notes as well, but I can do the math. I've got it right
If
here.
we
if
take
you need
those
it.
out, it's $2,100 in this request. Take the sign potted plants out, it's $2,100 left. For us to fund.
Good to move on? Okay, next project is at 23 West Beauregard, requesting 6,600, quite a substantial match at 67,450 for a total project cost of $74,050. Again, this is a similar project to the last one as far as facade work with new exterior doors, signage, landscaping, and the doors again for the secondary egress, meeting 7 of the 14 project criteria. And unfortunately, again, I do not have photos on this project.
Again, we're looking at new signs and we're looking at potted plants again.
Well, they were going off the old, when they were reading the requirements, what we could help them, and the old one does say signage, so that's why a lot of these projects do say signs. But I know we voted to exit, take out the signs.
Except they're historic, and the other thing I had on this one was the exterior doors were $2,500 a piece. Maybe a cheap door. David, do you know?
We just built a new building, and those doors are expensive. Those fire-rated doors, they're very expensive.
Again, they're doing a significant match, so if we took out the sign and the temporary landscaping,
At least $5,800 if you take out the signs and landscaping. I mean, makes the funding, our funding $5,800 if you take out the signs and the potted plants.
Okay, next one is at 220 North Chadburn. This is lighting and beyond. Funding requested is $98.50 with a match of $13,980 for a total project cost of $23,830. This does include, again, facade improvements in the form of exterior doors, lighting, and signage. I don't believe, nope, I don't have a picture on that one either.
So the lighting business is going to ask us for money for lighting?
What is the dollar amount of the exterior lighting?
$500.
The exterior lighting.
$500.
500,
I was intrigued on two of her requests. One of them has the water tap fee at, this one at $3,500. And on her property on 23 West Beauregard, the tap fee was $350. They were matches, but it was very interesting, the difference in fees between this property and the other property. But if you take the signs out, she's still within the range at this price, at the $9,850, which would cover exterior doors, exterior lighting, and the interior doors, which are secondary egress. Those together nearly total the $9,850. It's like $9,600 and something. Because she's only got a 58% match on this deal. I'd say I'd move on this one. It's going to be all right.
She understands that this, if approved, this would not include a new sign. I'm sure they understand
No, she
that.
could do a new sign. We're just going to only pay $9,850.
Well, I'm talking about, not included in the dollar amount. The new sign would not be in the dollar amount. They can do their new sign on their own if they want.
It's in here.
Plenty of, yeah.
Presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next project, 28 North Chadburn. This is Jim and Julie Raymond. They're requesting $22,390 with a match of $48,075 and a total project cost of $70,465. Significant facade work that they are planning on doing as far as demolishing the existing facade, reframing a new door, window openings, trimming out of new doors and windows, painting the doors, the trim and exterior, removal of paint on tiles and restoration of new tiles, fabrication of new metal awnings, installation of new LED lights under the canopy, and demolishing and repouring of their existing sidewalk, and this meets 13 of the 14 project criteria. And then here are the pictures that they provided.
I'll move quickly on this. This 68% match. It's good leverage for our money. It's well presented, and everything they line out here for facade is facade.
Do we have an existing photo?
Yeah, we do.
David may have one.
Dell's trying to beat you, David.
You don't like the picture up here?
Is this the one next to the old Roosevelt, or what?
No, it's down the street. It's catty corner from Blaine's.
This is, Johnny, this is the one that, those 9 buildings that were all painted one color between Paris and College, where the old school bus, not school bus, but
You need to be in a microphone, Mr.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Part of the ones that I bought that whole block, and we're doing the whole entire block. Where the black building is, the raw.
David.
One we just finished on the corner right next to the Roosevelt.
Okay.
Raw 1899. We've done 5 buildings already, and this is one of the these are the other 3 we're gonna do. So that whole block will be totally
It's the
renovated.
beige block.
That's right.
Okay.
The ugly beige was ugly.
Paint the town beige. I think there's a
Yeah.
song about that.
Yeah.
Right next to the
She sent it up.
Is it in one of those?
Right
There it is, right there.
Yes.
No, but there's the building.
Okay, right, okay, all right.
So it has some historic components left. Okay, very good.
Everything that's in this proposal is, all the costs relate to the facade.
Yeah, and this is well documented. I just had to remember which one it was.
This is the way they need to be presented.
Next. Let's go next.
Okay, next one is at 32 North Chadburn. The funding requested is $25,700 with a match of $23,705, and a total project cost of $49,405. Again, this would be significant facade work as far as demolishing the existing front of the building. They'd be installing new glass windows, door unit, trim, replaster, plaster moldings, installation of 2 new metal fire retardant awnings, new paint, new LED lights, and the installation of 2 new wrought iron railings. This one does meet 12 of 14 of the criteria, and there are several pictures associated with this, so I'll flip through those. There's the current building. Here are some after renderings.
Is the structure that's there now, is that an original structure? There's a historic facade behind the plastered out facade, okay.
And just some details on lighting and those items.
It?
Move forward.
Okay, next project, 30 North Chadburn. Again, funding requested is $26,800 with a match of $22,700 and a total project cost of $49,500, which would include facade improvements. Again, demolishing the existing front of the building, new glass windows, installing new brick pavers, new metal awning, new paint, new wood trim, and new LED lights. And this meets 12 of the 14 project criteria. There are pictures on this as well. So here's the current building. And then the after renderings.
John, can you tell us if this area is within the Chadburn Street work area? So I'm not certain that we need to be recommending funding for sidewalk work if that's going to be part of a larger project, or can you speak to that?
Yeah, this is within that area. I think that's a fair point, that if you gave money to that, it would be putting money towards something that at least potentially could be taken out and replaced when the Chadburn Street project happens. That's really up to you all. I mean, given the timing of that Chadburn Street project, even if we get the grant, it could be probably at least 2, maybe like 3 or 4 years before it actually happens. So one way to look at it is you're making something look better between now and then, even if it gets removed. I mean, that's.
What's the difference in a per square foot cost on a paver and concrete? David knows. David, what's the difference in the per square foot cost of paver installation versus concrete? Yeah, I wouldn't go with, I'd take the pavers. Sure.
Brick pavers are gonna be put on the facade of the building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what that's for.
I don't think of a
We're not doing any sidewalk
I don't
work,
think of a
because I
paver as
knew
something on the
that
side of a
They're gonna
wall.
eventually tear all that out. No,
Perfect.
because right now it has stucco on it.
So-
We can't get the stucco off because of the way they applied it, so we're gonna go back. We're trying to bring the buildings back to the way they were originally. And so we're gonna bring back the original tumbled brick pavers instead of doing a full brick, we're gonna apply them on there like tile, so it'll look just like a brick building, like what it originally was. Because if you actually go inside of these buildings, the front facades are still there. The church came in 15 years ago and just plastered over the front of them, but the actual transoms and all that stuff are back behind. They're all tore up, but you can see where the actual framing was. So that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, but on the other one,
Sidewalk work at all.
Repouring of sidewalk was on Jim and Julie Raymond, 28 North Chadburn.
Correct. Yeah, that's not on any of my projects.
I hope I didn't accuse you of putting that on your project.
But your point is relevant on the previous project we just looked at.
Ask him. He's in
The reason they
charge.
requested that, because those sidewalks are so horrible over there. I mean, if somebody falls down and breaks their leg, is the city gonna be liable for that? That's the problem we're having. We just did,
You can ask.
I just spent $10,000 on the one on the corner because of that same issue. You know, they spent $400,000 on the building, and then we've got a $5 sidewalk getting into that new building, and they fall down and break their leg, because it's bad over there. I mean, it's bad. There's manhole covers, gas.
Remember,
manhole that
you're
have
part of the
nothing in
city
them.
because you're a taxpayer, so if you want us to fix all those, we can.
Well, I already tried, and they won't do it. That's why I'll do it myself. I've already been down that road.
I'll just
Once-
answer that one
once again,
question.
this is-
The city is not responsible for those, and the city has no liability in relation to those.
This is all facade work. Well done.
I'm like Liz, I read a paper as a sidewalk paper. That's what I was thinking it was gonna.
But I got what you're doing.
I got you, David, now. Now we're clear as mud.
Okay, next project is at 39 West Concho for Casa Decor. She's requesting $34,533.61 with a match of $12,000 and a total project cost of $46,533.61. Again, mostly facade improvements here. She's going to prep, block fill in the cracks on her exterior. Prime and paint the exterior on all the sides, remove and replace the trim on the top of the building, framing the 2 overhead doors. Looks like she's going to be removing and replacing 15 windows, damaged glass, prepping and seal coating for security fencing, adding LED lights and installing a new sign. And it's showing that it's only meeting 2 of the 14 criteria. And I do have pictures for this. So it looks like there was a remodel after 2013, and this is what it looked like before. And this is what it currently looks like. And unfortunately, I do not have a rendering of the improvements.
Additional comment? Let's move forward, look at the next one.
Okay, next project is the Heritage Park project, and this is going to be located on the corner of South Oaks and Tuig. They are asking for $37,000 with a significant match of $712,645 with an overall total project cost of $749,645. The summary of work to be performed they're basically going to be improving and upgrading the building of a new water tank and tower at this location it's basically a pocket park kind of concept, designing the materials for a canopy as well as landscaping and irrigation. And again, this is just a small portion of an overall larger pocket park idea, and it meets 12 of the 14 criteria. And there's several pictures for this project as well.
I'm a donor and involved in this project, so I'm going to abstain.
So the first picture is kind of an overall aerial shot of the project, with the second picture being a rendering of the water tower.
Is that land to be deeded to the city, or has it?
The land is owned by the San Angelo Area Foundation. It was donated by Willis Johnson. and the whole project will be owned by the area foundation.
This will be a public park.
The city is hesitant to bring any other parks into their portfolio, and so this park will be owned by the area foundation, but it will have an endowment that will provide for the long-term perpetual care of the park.
And when completed, is supposedly going to be used significantly by the school district to, for field trips, nature pieces, water conservation.
Yes, that's my
because of
understanding, yes.
Because of the expense of taking young kids on field trips, and because of liability going out of town and stuff like this will be when and if complete, the school district plans on using it for field trips for conservation and water usage. Some of the younger grades.
So they've raised $700,000 for this park? So they couldn't raise another $37,000?
I think this is a good example of public-private partnerships. Excellent idea. It works for the citizens.
What is the economic impact for a park like this? What does it do economically for the city or for tourism or anything? Do we know?
You want me to respond?
Whoever.
Well, obviously, this will be a.
Thought you were abstaining.
Thought I was being asked.
It will definitely be a draw to bring citizens down to the city, especially if the school district gets involved, and they seem to be going that direction for sure.
What direction is that?
So they're planning on using this park as a field trip destination, and so once we draw their kids down there, their parents are always they're gonna talk to their parents, and I think they're gonna draw their parents down there too.
How big is that park?
1 block, I'm gonna say.
No, it's not a block.
Okay, Dale, how big is it?
I'm sorry? How big is the lot?
Okay.
It's a pretty small lot relative to this type of investment, in my opinion. This is my opinion. And we also have TIRZ has already provided funding for this park in previous years for the development of the sidewalk improvements. I believe it was around $30,000.
But again, this is not a public project, it's a private project. It's seeking some support.
And this is one that we're frankly seeking your input on. On the one hand, it is not helping a private business that will improve the tax base of the zone. On the other hand, there is an economic impact of anything that beautifies the downtown and brings people downtown has an economic benefit to downtown. But I know that's been some of the discussion and some of our struggle in terms of recommending this project or not. Is this the kind of project that would go through this incentive program? And like I said, we're really looking for your input.
Or the public percentage, right, that was the discussion before, yeah.
Yeah, most of the presentations that we've had in the past have always, and I know that Mr. Pfluger has in the past said that the county wants to make sure that we're investing TIRZ funds for the development of projects that are going to increase the tax base, and I don't believe this does.
Additional comment?
I'm for helping this park, but not right now. I feel we have other projects that we need to help other people with. From what I see on papers, we help out just a lot of the same people, and we really don't have the funds now to help out people who are finding out about TIRZ. So I'm for helping this park, but not right now. I think we need to help out other people who are trying to build their businesses or fix their buildings that really don't ask for a lot.
Additional board comment?
Does anyone, oh, sorry.
I think it's beautiful. One of the things that I've learned that where the school district is interested in is that it would be very educational. It would teach kids about the history of this part of the country, of San Angelo. And kids today are clueless. They don't know the history of San Angelo. I think it's a small amount of money to ask for when the private funds have raised so much.
I would only add that if we just look at the policy itself and what it says, the goal is to fund projects that bring new businesses and positive impacts to this area in an aggressive way, and I believe that this project does. But of course, you know, that anytime that you're talking about an area and we're going to beautify the area and it's going to pull people in, but it's not just people, it's also for educational purposes. I think that's something to consider.
Additional comment? Let's move forward. We've got
Is this the
6
first?
more to go.
I'm sorry.
Casey,
I think
go
I'm the only one that didn't know
Yeah.
where the park was, so I had to ask where it was. I'm probably the only one in the room that doesn't. But have we had a project like this that's been proposed through the private part of TIRZ funding? I mean, this kind of looks to me like it's quasi-public. I know that it's going to be privately owned, but have we had a project funded like this through TIRZ?
Not that I'm,
kind of the first
not that
time.
I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
And I'll just throw out one option that you could consider, given that it was through the incentive program. I'm assuming that at the end of the day, this will have some sort of public access easement or some sort of, the public can access this basically as if it were a public park. If that were the case, you could, without harming any of the other projects, I would recommend that you could take that funding out of the 25% set aside.
I was surprised to see it in this packet, I guess, when I first got it, because I didn't have an understanding of what it was or how it was funded. I even tried to Google it to try to figure it out, and I couldn't find anything. So,
Let me just throw this in. I just heard that they had raised already $716,000 or whatever it was, and then I hear that it's more like $800,000. So why throw an additional $37,000 to this project if they already have the money? I'm just throwing that out. It doesn't sound to me like they need the money. Is what bottom line is. If they've got $800,000, this $37,000 to go to some other business in the downtown area. Just keep that in mind.
Additional comment? We have 4 more to go. Let's keep going, so.
Okay, next project, 236 West 2nd Street. This is Jost Lawn and Landscape. He is requesting $38,030 with a match of $95.50 for a total project cost of $47,537.50. Again, this is mostly facade improvement work as far as removing and replacing trim, windows, wood siding, door openings, concrete steps, footing and siding, painting and sealing of the concrete steps and sidewalk, as well as installing new electrical lights, conduit, and switches. And this meets 6 of the 12 criteria. And when this was originally presented, we did not have pictures, but he did provide those today. So we do have some before photos, I believe. I believe those are all the photos that were provided. Not the after.
This one's a 22% match, too. It's a real light match. Now, what are the criteria it meets?
6 of the 12.
$169,000 is looking smaller and smaller.
Let's keep going.
Okay, next project, 21 North Chadburn. They are asking for $70,840 with a match of $17,710 and a total project cost of $88,550. They're planning on removing and replacing old doors and windows on the building, sandblasting the brick, removing and replacing the old tile, as well as constructing a new canopy. And they meet 9 of the 14 criteria. And I believe there is a before and after picture, yes, of this one.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, this is on the other side.
Match again, can you put the match back up?
Absolutely.
Additional board comment?
Sorry. I think that we probably need to see a little bit more on the match, maybe, just to kind of keep it in line with some of the others, but I think it's a good project.
Similar grants in that the asking price in the similar areas are about 25,000, and so the funding request is a little heavy on this one, so.
26.
I would say on this one, I mean, to me, this is the textbook reason that the TIRZ is in existence. If you look at that picture and the before and after, to
That
me,
is a good eyesore.
That's why we have a TIRZ.
Yeah, okay. Let's move forward.
Okay, next project, 114 South Chadburn. This is at Fat Boss's Pub. They are requesting $75,000 with their match at $25,000. The total project cost is $76,339.97. Their summary of their work is including adding an open patio extension with columns, planters, railing, wrought iron gates, new electrical, new asphalt, and a new sign. Even though it does show that it only meets 2 of the 14 criteria, obviously this is a pretty significant addition to their existing business. And I believe there are renderings, yes. They have not, that I know of. I believe they applied the last cycle and did not get approved.
So my question was on this one, this essentially closes the alley?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that, but yes.
Is that an alley or is that a utility easement?
This is an alley. It would encroach into the alley. Their proposal is to do that in such a way with opening and closing of gates with basically movable patio furniture so that it could be opened up or could be open in case of an emergency. They are working with the city, including the fire marshal's office, on how to accomplish that and still maintain access for fire trucks. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we rated this a little bit lower down the list. While we think it's a good project, they have not
completed addressing all of those encroachment issues in the alley. Also have not received DHRC, Design and Historic Review Commission approval. So for those reasons, we thought this particular project is a good project, but perhaps they could come back and apply again in the future once they've gotten their ducks in a row a little bit more.
Well, I work in the building adjacent, and we use that alley. I see a lot of people using that alley. So I asked our landlord about it, and they acted like they didn't know about this. So I'm not sure. I know it's hard when you're dealing with the church, communicating with the right people, but
My understanding is they have discussed this with the church. Again, they can probably answer that. But something like using an alley space like this does require city council approval, and this has not gone to city council. So again, our opinion is this is a little bit premature. If council were to say no for fire safety reasons, we don't want you to use the alley at all, then this project would go away. So we think those things should be worked out prior to.
So you want to wait on this one until the other action occurs?
That was the
Okay.
staff recommendation and why
Okay.
we ranked this one lower than some of the other projects. And given the lack of funding in this cycle, we felt that would be the better way to approach this project.
So when you do that, then the church would be notified and they would officially have to respond, right?
Yes, when the
Okay.
encroachment originally they had talked about an alley abandonment, completely abandoning it. Now they're looking at an encroachment agreement with the city, but that would go to city council, and I believe that does require notification to the surrounding property owners.
We do have Mr. Castillo here in the audience if he wants to talk about the alley.
Sure.
John, while he's coming up, any idea when it's going to council, when it's going to present it, or?
No, my understanding is they're still working with both the city's engineering department and the fire marshal, and you may have an update on that.
Blindsided on that. That's an old set of plans that was from the first meeting, and we've already spent money to get a new set of plans. And Ms. Grindstaff, I have been with the church, but let me pass these. Dr. Gates and the fire chief and the fire marshal have signed letters saying that they
We did ask for an updated set of plans, and I believe accidentally the ones Cynthia gave me were still the old ones, so I'm not
It's
sure
the
where
same
that
plan,
was
John?
lost.
Yeah, these are the new
Yeah.
ones that the engineers.
Testing. We have had several meetings with city officials on this, on behalf of Johnny and Fat Bosses. And I too am a little blindsided, as Johnny said, because we've had numerous conversations with engineering as well as the fire marshal. And from all indications and emails I've received relative to this project, they've been given the green light to proceed.
I'm kind of really surprised about this. I have a meeting with the church. We're trying to get together and I know Pacifico's next door where you work. I'm trying to get with their board. One of my neighbors is on the board, and I've showed him, and what we're trying to do is that boulevard that's there, I believe it's a little over 3 feet wide, either to lease that or buy that. That's the only encroachment we would have as far as on their property. Yeah, as far as, I thought everybody had those new set of plans, and we've met with the fire marshal, we've met with engineering. We've been running this for the last 3 weeks, pretty solid, and I was kind of surprised that it's where y'all thought it was now, but
We're not giving up on you.
no, I mean,
Aren't these the same plans we're looking at, or not?
no, these are like 12, this project's been going on for, I think the date is on those, those may be 7, 8 years old. See, the fire lane is different, where we're gonna move these bollards. None of this, we wouldn't have gave the fire marshal the 20 feet they wanted. Those are pretty old.
So really, you go across to the whole alley to the property line of the church.
No, well, yes. Yes, the building that we're at, 5 feet is ours, and then the city would own the rest. And then we'd have to encroach those 3 feet. I don't have the plans in front of me. It tells you the dimensions, the width and all that, but
See, the weird thing about that drawing is right under where it says fire lane on that top,
That's the old drawing, that's why I'm kinda, I don't know.
Yeah, but the bollards protect the chiller that sits, and then there's that median, so that drawing is not,
No,
not a good-
those bollards are not there.
yes, they are.
Harold, you see over here where they're three lined up, we'd put them straight. Are you looking at the top or the bottom?
The ones that protect the chiller that are against what says adjacent property.
You can draw on that screen if that helps. There you go.
This here?
Yeah,
That's not the boulevard. The boulevard's over here.
no, the bollards.
I understand that, but there's 10.5 feet from our edge of our property line
Property
to
line.
where they would hit the bollards, 10.5 feet. They're not right up against it.
Yeah, it still is hard to understand where the actual property lines are.
That's why I wouldn't, this
Yeah,
plan here.
that's what I agree with you. It's,
With the traffic that goes through there, 10.5 feet sounds pretty narrow to me.
Well, the church, when that alleyway was abandoned on the opposite side, there's a daycare that runs through there. I had to go to the city council meeting.
There's a what?
There's like a daycare, the kids cross back and forth. You can't go all the way through that alley. There's bollards at the end. So we had a city council meeting about 10 years ago when I was doing my building and trying to figure out how my beer trucks could still get through. And they wanted to abandon the alleyway, so I came to the meeting and I was like, yeah, it'd be great. So that people used to speed by that alley all the way through to get to, what is it, Oaks? So I was all for it. So the people I've been talking to, you could still get through there, but there's no reason to use that alleyway unless, I mean, you shouldn't be flying by there.
You know, I wasn't saying flying, I was just saying getting
There's a
through
couple
there.
of alleys downtown that I've driven by that are less than 10. So, I mean, that needs to be used. If people want to still get there to cut across to get to church, I understand, but the people that are speeding through there even now, just to make that turn,
We have alleys less than 10 feet wide.
right at.
we could have anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
It
surprised.
wouldn't be
that-
John's
that's
fault
not-
if we did.
Yeah, I mean,
That's not,
That's not
that's
your
not
plan.
typical. Yeah, but
Okay, let's go.
Well, I've got a question. Just living over in that area a lot of the day, so how will you get your beer delivery?
Right.
Okay, that's on Chadbourne Street.
We would just change the time of delivery so that traffic ain't as bad and they come up the ramp.
So I don't see the big Budweiser truck at 3 o'clock on Mondays and Thursdays and
If
Fridays.
he's running late, I mean, I can't do nothing about it, but you shouldn't.
Okay.
Depends on demand.
I can always tell you demand.
Harry Houston's been working on a project, our engineer and architect.
Yeah.
And he's met, I think the DRC is the only one we're waiting on right now. But as far as, he's got all the letters from Atmos and everybody that's approved the project or that said that they didn't have a problem with it. So like I said, I didn't know that y'all had all the old set of plans. I thought they were kind of up to par where we were, but, I mean, I'd have to really get with my engineer, but he's taking care of most of it because me and my sister both have 2 other occupations we do, but he's pretty much meeting with the city, and Dale's kind of been in, I've been in a couple of those meetings downtown, so, I mean, I didn't know that, I thought y'all had all that information, but. And, you know, we've been downtown for 10 years, I'll only say one thing, I've been sitting here listening to a lot of the people bring up these projects, and it seems to me like some of them, yeah, they're really good for the city. I'm all about historical buildings. In fact, it's kind of funny, me and my sister were talking about, we own a building downtown, Abilene Historical Building, we just spent $22,000 redoing the whole facade. And they don't have projects like that in Abilene. It's a historical building, and the metal was old, the glass was old. I'm in the glass business too, so I was like, hey, we got to do it. It's pride of ownership. So a lot of this stuff that I'm seeing, I own a G Auto Glass down on Washington. I don't know how far this goes, but that would have been nice. I redid that whole building on the corner of Washington and Beauregard. I spent $100-some thousand. Some of this, to me, is basically financial, and I wouldn't say financial gain, but what is it really bringing, stimulating the economy? What is it doing to bring in people to downtown? Because you got to have pride of ownership. I mean, that was an old gas station when I brought it. You know, I built it up, and to me, it's my customers, it's my kind of clientele that I want to bring to me. And there's a lot of nice projects in Missouri, what they're doing over there, some good stuff. But some of this, to me, is you're asking for money that I think if that was my building, I would have already done, just to improve it. For whoever I'm going to lease it to, wherever I'm going to, some of the stuff that I'm seeing, I mean, we've been working on this for, I can get you the old set of plans and when they're stamped, and we've never asked for any money downtown. Never, for any projects. We did it ourselves, and we're doing it ourselves right in the kitchen. So, I mean, I think we were a cornerstone of downtown. I consider myself that. I mean, I got a lot of business owners that talk to me, John, A lot of friends of mine that open business downtown, from the gym across the street, they just keep coming, and they wouldn't have done it 10 years ago. Heck, I used to sit outside with the blinking light. Me and John Fuentes used to come over when the restaurant closed. I mean, I don't think people would have. But, I mean, if we can get the help, we'd like the help, but some of this stuff that you're asking me, I thought you already knew. I mean, and like I said, TIRZ program runs in different cycles. We're just trying to do what we can to, get our projects.
Let us get up to speed.
Okay.
And this is very helpful.
And John, we don't know it all. We don't.
No, and I don't either, but I thought some of it
and
you already did.
And we are not, like somebody said, we're not giving up on you, okay?
Oh.
But we do not know all the details.
But
Like
one thing I will
council.
say is I'm glad he gave out these blueprints. He's asking for $75,000, and it was very professionally provided, all the information. Some of these people are just writing down on a sheet of paper and scribbling. I mean, they're not asking for chump change, and help us out. I like the professionalism you brought to the table. So.
Thanks.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. One more?
Do we have one of those? Ready to move on? Okay, last project, 113 East Tewig. This is for KWGV1 Properties. They are asking for $75,000 with a significant match of $63,140.12. Total project cost is $138,140.12. This includes a lot of facade work, I believe paving and landscaping as well. So the plan is to paint the entire exterior, repair the awnings over the doors, installation of an awning over the rear door, cleaning up and raising the electrical wiring, replacing fencing and gates, adding 2 new exterior doors, installing 3 windows, paving the side drives and parking lot, as well as installation of xeriscaping, artificial turf, and drop-resistant plants. And this project does meet 11 of the 14 criteria, and she did provide several before pictures on this as well, I believe as a couple of after, so we'll go through those. So here's what the front currently looks like. Here's the rear parking area. And a little bit better zoomed in view of the electrical work in the rear. Here's a rendering of the front, the facade work, as well as the landscaping plans. As well as a landscaping drawing. And those are all the pictures for that project.
Intended final use is going to be
part of the building is, we're preparing it to be for lease, hopefully as a restaurant or an office space. It could be a lot of different things. The back is being prepped for downtown living, an apartment, studio style. And then currently the property, the exterior property, I don't know if you could really see in one of those pictures, but to the left, it's like on a lot and a half. It's almost a half acre. So the left-hand side, all over here, oh, that's neat, is there is a couple with that food trailer, and they are leasing the exterior property. In this building here in the back, have made this into a commissary that met the requirements by the city to be able to leave, if you have a food trailer, you have to move it every 3 days to wherever your commissary is. So they've made that into a commissary and are creating a food trailer park out of this whole side area. So it's a very multi-function property.
Are Ms. Kelly?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. All right, okay.
Okay, so that completes the projects. If you would like, we can go through with our staff recommendations, or if y'all need to talk amongst yourself, however you want us to present it.
Let me ask you this. How many of these are you recommending or not recommending? Why don't you start with that?
We recommended 6 and recommended funding 6 and recommended not funding 6.
And as you'll note there, on some of them, we recommended only partial funding on some of those, partly because of what some of the funding was for, but partly just to get under the amount of funding we had available.
So these are the projects, the first 4 of the 6 that we recommended funding. Again, as John noted, some of these we did recommend partial funding. For this particular one on 113 East Tuig, the partial funding that we recommended to fund included the facade as well as the landscaping. Within the facade, we recommended excluding the fencing and the gates and recommended no paving. So essentially facade work minus the gates and fencing and landscaping. But again, that's up to you guys to decide.
I don't have my math, but I had 15,280 on this, which was the landscaping, exterior painting.
Can you flip to the
Exterior
other?
doors.
To the,
Turn my phone on, but
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just think it's important for the board to know, I'm on the DHRC board, and I'm watching and listening and everything. I think the board needs to be aware of some of the projects have DHRC approval, which to me carries a lot of weight, because some of the things that y'all are going to be voting on are not even approved by DHRC. So when these, if you approve some of this stuff and then it goes to our board and we back it out, then you've approved things that we're not going to allow. So I think that's something y'all need to take into consideration when you're voting on these, of what has been through all of these projects are in DHRC zone. So
Completely agree with you.
I think you need to be aware of that. I mean,
It's sort of like asking about the sidewalk
exactly.
issue.
You're voting on something that doesn't have 100% approval from the entire
Right.
system. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mazzaro. I appreciate that.
That's- I think the staff needs to make y'all aware of that. What is 100% approved, ready to go, and what is not.
Then does it not have to go to council anyway, or not?
No, well, yeah, and it still has to go to council. You know,
And-
some of the stuff has to go on, you know, they have to, there's
It
a
will
lot
all
of
go to
encroachment
council.
agreements that have to be done that aren't.
All goes through council.
As we presented last time, the way we did these projects, we took the whole list of projects and ranked them from our, the number 1 project through number 12. Part of that ranking, as we were comparing projects, Project A versus Project B, the projects that already have had any DHRC approvals and any necessary council approvals basically moved to the top of the list. And so we have that information. I believe there are only 2 projects on here that already have DHRC approval. And if I'm not mistaken, both of those projects, we recommended approval.
Can you go back to your first slide? So it's 59. $220. $32. Next slide. Okay, we talked about the 21 North Chadbourne probably ought to be about a 25,000. That's what the chairman mentioned.
Only because the other facade grants in that same area are in that range. And especially in this funding cycle, that would be particularly.
Those facades.
Yeah.
And when you recommend something like that, especially that significant of a cut, I would recommend that you, perhaps that we ask, or since they're here, maybe ask the applicant, is if that's okay. We've had applicants that if they said, we're not going to fund all of it, only part of it, they said, well, then I'm not going to do it. And so that would be my only caution there is if the applicant in this case would still move forward with the project with that lower amount of funding.
I'd recommend cutting it in half, because the others turned in what they thought was appropriate. I don't know what the applicant thinks about that, but I think half would be fair, still within the range.
I'm with Liz on that.
It was the difference in the match. This is a 20. What he recommended was a 20% match, and the rest of them were in 50% matches.
Cut that one, you could pick up the Jim and Julie Raymond, the 28 North Chadbourne.
Correct.
We got 3 others that are all doing facades in the same block at 25,000 each.
Yeah, I don't know what the challenges are of each of those individual buildings, but I think a reduction is fair.
I think keeping it at 25 all the way across, all those 3, is even more fair.
And the one on 21 North Chadbourne,
4 of them.
There's 4 of them right there together in the same block.
the match that he does provide does meet the 25% minimum that is required, so just.
Okay, let's go back to Mr. Mazur's comment about what has been through the other review process. It's the DHRC. What are those projects?
I think 2, is it both of your projects or the? Okay, so 30 and 32 have been approved from the DHRC.
28 North Chadbourne been approved?
I don't believe, so I don't have documentation, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I believe if memory serves that it's just those 2.
We're going to have be blind on these. We know going forward what David said is what we need to do. But if we're not going to get anything done today, if we
No, I think we
wait for
could
that.
recommend funding contingent upon those, whatever we're funding, be approved through, those elements be approved through the DHRC, contingent upon the DHRC's approval. So we're not going to come back and forth and back and forth.
Second that.
Yes, sir.
Brought up in front with staff that it needed to be approved by DHRC before anybody approached the board for these monies and these plans. It was never given to anybody that hasn't done that. This is obviously the lines that we know we have to go through is to get submittal from the DRC and approval. And it's like Mr. Pfluger did with us.
you can get the monies, you can get the approval and everything, once you have your, like us with the building permits and everything submitted. So like Ms. Grindstaff said, I mean, that's a good idea. I don't think it's the biggest thing about having DHRC submittal at this point, mainly because it wasn't given to us to do. If that was a checklist, we would have had it done. But it's obvious that it has to go through all these boards and all the code and all this stuff to get, so I'd like to say that that's a good point.
Yeah, nobody's trying to harm the applicant. It's
Right.
it's process,
Right.
so.
But it's still gonna have to go through
As
regardless.
long as it
so-
goes through, right.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be funding something that would be contradictory to the desire or the recommendation of the DHRC.
And that's where the contingency would be
Right.
coming, thanks.
Thank you.
You know what, I find it hard to believe that, you guys are recommending these 6, and I know some folks out there have been in the downtown area for many years, and I'm talking about Fat Boss over there. I know he is a cornerstone of the livelihood of what's happening down there. So for them not to even be included in it, and that's just my opinion, but I know that what they've done over the years and what they're continuing to do, and what he did out there outside the TIRZ zone out there at his own glass auto place is to be commended for what he's done. So I find it kind of, concerning that you guys didn't even look at that. While again, you're talking about economic impact. Those folks, that place packs people in there, and they spend money. So I just want to throw that out there. That's my feelings, and I'm going to have to leave, but I just want to throw that out there. Okay.
And again, I think we're very supportive of that project.
Yes.
Given the limited amount of funding available, and if it had just been no DHRC approval, that's not a killer thing. The fact that they're proposing to encroach into an existing alley and not having already had city council approval, that's really the primary reason we thought it was a little premature at this point. But in one of those meetings we had with them at City Hall, we recommended that they, I remember saying in that meeting what I've just said to this board, and encouraging them, if they didn't get funding, to reapply, because we would be very supportive of their project in the future once they got that city council approval.
And it's not just them, it's just any business that has
here.
been around for a long time.
Pick this one up.
I just feel like and I understand, he's got to go through all these hoops and, but.
I'm with Johnny. I mean, they've proven they're in it for the long haul. And what Johnny said, it's 100% right.
Eric Eggmeyer, they've sacrificed, they've added, so I totally respect that on any business downtown, so, anyway. I apologize, but I have to go.
We can get everything except this one, and this one, and this one.
Okay, we're really struggling right now, so let's move on. Some of the absolute projects that we've talked about, and then table the rest for final consideration, board? Or can we even do that?
What's the question?
Are there projects that the board is settled on right now, for sure?
Yes, just like you did with
Absolute.
the north projects, if there, you could approve some of these and table the rest for future consideration, for sure.
Okay. Without picking, I'm not going to pick, but I would entertain a motion for any of these projects.
I think Casey's ready to make a motion.
Okay? Okay. I'd entertain a motion for the board.
I guess I'm gonna ask for public comment on the building owner of some of these that, I hate to cut 150,000 without, if the gentleman does want to speak that's here, if we think 25,000, if he'll still go forward with the project, I think that's one of the biggest eyesores that we have downtown, and I'd hate to kill that project altogether.
Okay, come forward.
The 21 North Chadburn building, you said it, it's a disaster. I do have a leasee scheduled to take that building upon completion. I'm going to do it anyway. We're gonna spend,
88,550.
the total expenditure on that building is $234,000. Interior and exterior. The outside is the, it says here 88,550. Is that right?
According to but that's just the worksheet that you submitted.
Okay. So we submitted for 70,840. And like I said, I'm going to do the building anyway. I wanted assistance because I'm doing other buildings downtown. That's y'all's decision. And I mean, y'all are in the position you're in the driver's seat. If you want people to continue to improve the downtown corridor, the Roosevelt Hotel's a block away. That particular area is very important to me, as it is Mr. Mazur. We're trying to move north on Chadbourn, and this is the worst eyesore on that corridor. There's no question about it. I did not include all of the actual expenses related to that exterior. The side doors, the side transom windows, the back, none of that was touched, and all of that's viewable from the street. I only addressed the front facade. So what I asked for, somebody made the comment about 30, anything would help. No question about it. If it's 25 or it's 35, whatever it is, anything will help us. So I'll leave that decision to you.
Thank you.
I'd make a recommendation that we go 28 North Chadbourn facade, the 30 North Chadbourn facade, the 32 North Chadbourn facade at their prices. Do the 21 North Chadbourn at $25,000. 59 North Chadbourn at $2,100. That takes the signs and the potty plants out. Do the 220 North Chadbourn at their price. Do the 32 West Beauregard at $5,800. At $5,800, which is taking signs and potty plants out. And do it in 11 East Tuig at 113 East Tuig at their recommended $20,280. And if I'm abstaining, can I say the 37,000 out of the 25%, which is the park project, out of the public park project? You got your math? How many is that? But that's going to be less than $70,000.
And that may leave us, right.
There's still some money left there, but I don't have it in my head.
And so tabling the remainder of the projects? And so then tabling the remainder of the projects for now?
I'd like to table fat bosses especially because I think we all agree and can see some benefit there, but I think there's a lot of legality and other questions that have been posed that we can't, I would probably recommend them fund that at the next cycle.
That's one that we are tabling, so.
Okay.
What is the total?
Did you have a total for that, Lee? We can
Do not.
We can try to add them up. Did you get all the numbers?
I'll turn my phone on. We'll see.
Okay.
$137,920.
137, what?
920.62. I believe my math's correct.
62 out of the 75%, and 37,000 out of the 25%.
Yes, that's funding 59, we'll go down in order. 59 North Chadburn at 2,100, 23 West Beergard at 5,800, 220 North Chadburn at 9,850, 28 North Chadburn at 22,390, 32 North Chadburn at 26,800, 30 North Chadburn at 25,700.
Those are backwards.
But yeah.
That's all right.
They're the way-
30 on
I'm
Chadburn,
reading it
26.
right down
We
that
have
right
it on
down.
the, it's
Yeah.
not the way it was.
21 North Chadburn at 25,000, 113 East Tuig at $20,280.62. Was that your motion?
And the, out of the 75% fund,
37,000.
and 37,000 out of the 25% fund.
I would actually recommend, since Mr. Pfluger is abstaining on that one, take that one in a separate motion, and
Okay.
somebody else should make that motion.
And then table 114 South Chadburn, 39 West Concho, 236 West Second. And we'll have about $30,000, $35,000 to spend on those.
Was there a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
Casey, did you have a total on that as well?
I believe that's
137,920.
$137,920.62.
Okay. Any public comment?
Mr. Castillo? Yes, we're going to table and leave it for the next cycle.
We're not going to table and leave it for the next cycle. We still have money to spend now. We can
Oh.
bring it back next time.
Need to speak at the microphone.
Please come forward, Mr. Castillo. Thank you.
That'll give me time to double check my math.
Well, I thought we're still waiting on the green light for council.
I understood. There's 30,000 left, right, Mr. Pfluger, you said? And the three that were tabled,
Plus or minus.
plus or minus, so they'll be split between those individuals?
No, it may go all to one.
Oh, I understand that, but we just want to take ours out and just consider those other two, and we'll wait for October if we decide to do it.
Additional public comment? Any board comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Our motion carries. Okay, now, Mr. James, do we need to bring a separate motion for?
Who is the second on that? I'm sorry. Yes, if
Second
you wanted
motion.
to take action on the park project and take that out of the 25% public project funding, then a motion would be in order.
Is there a second motion?
Second it.
Is there, is there a motion to
Oh.
take the 37,000 out of?
Let you ask for a
public funds?
second.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, an additional motion instead of a second.
I'll make the motion for the Heritage Park project, that if the council wishes to fund that it be done out of the public portion of the TIRZ South Fund.
Is there a second?
I second it.
With Mr. Pfluger abstaining, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Our motion carries. That being said, thank you to the public for being here and for enduring our meeting. We appreciate that. And also, let's move to item 8, which is announcements and possible future agenda items. Our next meeting is Tuesday, June 27th, 2017. Is there any additional board comment?
Move adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Our motion carries. Thank you.